Test, test. All right, cool. Sorry about that, fellas. I don't know why it always has to happen on Sundays for our NFL stream, but we are here. We get another great football game between two football teams in the National Football League. Seems like a typical showdown slate that we've been having. It's kind of a lower total today. It actually moved a little bit. It was Denver was minus 6 point favorites earlier. They moved to minus 5.5. We're sitting at a 43 point total. So a little bit of a tighter game. The field is leaning heavily into the Denver side tonight. Let me double check that. Denver 4-2 will be the most popular stack by quite a bit. And then Denver 3-3 with Denver captain still going to be very popular. Denver 5-1 is going to be very highly owned tonight. And it kind of makes sense. The best plays on this slate are on the Denver side. Washington 5-1 is going to be very, very low owned, but I don't even think we have to go that deep. It's kind of hard to find any kind of strong 5-1 Washington side. It could obviously still work out, but if we want to go Washington heavy, I really prefer just to stick with a Washington 4-2 or even a 3-3 Washington build, or a 3-3 build with a Washington captain, I should say. We have a couple of injury notes. For Denver, the tight end Nate Adkins is out. Doesn't really affect much that we're going to be looking at. And then, well, actually, it might affect a little bit because they only have two tight ends active, but we'll talk about that. And then for Denver's defense, they're getting back Pat Surtain tonight. I heard he's pretty good on D, so that's just going to reinforce how much we like the Denver DST tonight. It's probably the most popular defense I've ever seen on a showdown slate, at least this season. And then for the Washington side, Terry McLaurin is in, Noah Brown is out, Jaden Daniels is out, and Chris Moore was a late add to the injury report with an illness. So for NBA, we usually lean towards late adds to the injury report. They sit out, but we'll have to wait for word on if Chris Moore is in because the secondary receivers for Washington aren't that interesting today. But if there's a few more snaps to go around for I don't know maybe a guy like Traylon Burks, then maybe we can find something in there. Appreciate you, Space Donut. Yeah, I had a pretty good one. 3 stops on Thanksgiving Day, one more yesterday. So successful weekend. Don't ask me how my Thanksgiving slate went, though. It went poorly. Amon Ra? Come on, man. Just get up and run. Eli with a great question out of the gate. Is there a good number of popular plays in Showdown to go with an unpopular captain and vice versa? Yeah, I'm going to give you guys our top captain option overall tonight right now. That's Troy Franklin. So he is at the top of the model, and our second best play on DraftKings is Cortland Sutton, but Troy Franklin is in a tier of his own at the top. He's also an underperforming wide receiver, and he is sub 10% captain ownership. He's projected for sub 10% anyway. I wouldn't be surprised if he came in slightly higher than that, but either way, I think he's going to be our top captain option tonight. We're looking at pretty heavy ownership on Bo Nix captain and RJ Harvey captain, especially over on FanDuel. I don't hate RJ Harvey captain tonight, but he is only the 7th ranked play over on DraftKings, so the model's a little bit lower on him, even though his price is pretty good. And then with Bo Nix, he's much lower. As a QB, the Denver defense is actually rated as a better play than Bo Nix tonight, considering the price. So that'll be an interesting one to look at. But there's just a lot of low-owned captains that we're pretty interested in tonight. Troy Franklin is the number one option, I think. And then we can also look at Cortland Sutton. Particularly in the flex, he's projected for much less ownership than Troy Franklin. So if you're going with a Bo Nix stack, that's one way to get slightly different from the field. Troy Franklin's going to be the more popular option today. But Cortland Sutton looks great too. And let's say you want to stick with Troy Franklin, a couple of the other low-owned guys that we are looking at tonight. Chris Rodriguez Jr. isn't projected for too much captain ownership. I'm slightly interested in him at captain and possibly MVP if I have a set of 150. If I'm only making a few lineups, I'm just going to default to playing him in the flex. But he was the lead back for Washington last week. He played 45% of snaps. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 27%. Jeremy McNichols, 25%. And Colson Yankoff, 27%. So Yankoff we're not really considering for fantasy tonight. But Chris Rodriguez leading this room in snaps. I believe that's the first time that's happened all season. So it's not a guarantee it happens again tonight. But the model is giving us Chris Rodriguez as the top running back play on Washington. Now, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt still touched the ball 9 times on the ground. And I think he had one target and three red zone opportunities. He is very low on tonight compared to Chris Rodriguez. Chris Rodriguez is pretty low on too. He's only projected for about 20% ownership on both sites in the flex, 0% captain, while Krosky Merritt's at 3% flex on both sites. He's a little bit cheaper than Chris Rodriguez over on FanDuel, but he's slightly more expensive over on DraftKings. I think it's fine to get there as a pivot. The field doesn't seem like they're really that into Chris Rodriguez. I'm a little surprised how low these ownerships, though. I wouldn't be surprised if he came in slightly higher owned, which would make Krosky Merritt a slightly better pivot than he is right now. But I mean, we've been watching him. He's not what he was hyped up to be. He had the opportunity and he just did not take advantage of it. Now, JCM is much lower on the model, and then Jeremy McNichols is even lower than him. He's also projected for 4 and 7% in the flex. I think we can consider them as pivots, but Chris Rodriguez is going to be the priority for me here. And Chris Rodriguez is actually ranked as the 5th overall play on DraftKings, considering that 6,400 price. And then over on FanDuel, Chris Rodriguez is still in the top 10, even at that slightly elevated price. So I think that's the back that we're really interested in from Washington. Let's run through. As for other running backs that we can look at tonight, Jaleel McLaughlin really stands out. Pretty sure I saw a coach's comment, maybe it was just a beat reporter speculating, but that he's going to get more opportunity going forward. So he had 6 carries and 1 target. He only played 8 snaps. He touched the football on 7 of the 8 snaps he was on the field for, which is very significant to me. And I think we just kind of hope that he gets a larger snap share tonight. And we have some confidence that he'll be involved in the offense either way. But the model is identifying Jaleel McLaughlin as a pretty strong value play today. Like he looks good on FanDuel too, and these guys typically don't. He's only 2,600 over there. He is projected for 27% ownership on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, McLaughlin is, the 12th ranked play, considering his price over on DraftKings, and he's only projected for 9% ownership. This is a player that I think can help us build lineups. He could be a possible pivot off of some of the more popular value like Evan Engram, who's $200 more. I think that's like the main one. It's like not a direct pivot, but I think it's something to consider. Just he's going to be he's projected for about a quarter of the ownership that Evan Engram is getting at pretty much the same price. Like any lineup that has Engram, you can fit McLaughlin into. He's cheaper. So I think McLaughlin is a pretty sick pivot to RJ Harvey and all that ownership tonight. I'm okay playing them both in the same lineup. They're going to contribute not exactly in the same way. Like Jaleel did get there with that touchdown. But what I'm really hoping for is a little bit more involvement in the passing game. So we'll have to see if that comes to fruition. But either way, the model really likes him. And he's going to come in a little higher than 9% owned in the flex on DraftKings. But whatever he comes in at, I can't imagine it's going to be high enough to alter our view so much that he's not a great value play anymore. So Jaleel McLaughlin, one of the top plays. These running backs, Rodriguez and McLaughlin, both look really good tonight. Just I don't know if the field is ignoring him a little bit too much, but the total is low. And remember, every single showdown slate has been going under. If this one ends up going under, I don't know. I could definitely see one of these two guys, if not just both of them, ending up in that optimal. Who scores tonight's first touchdown? I sure hope it's not RJ Harvey. Troy Franklin, underperforming wide receiver, top of the model. Will Evan Engram even get going? Ever get going? Yeah, that's the thing. So his snap count is actually not that strong. Let's go to Denver. Plays like 40%. He played 40% of snaps in their last game, which was week 11. 44, 51, 43, 56% over the last few weeks. Like that's fine. He gets targeted when he's on the field. They have Adam Troutman out there more. I don't think Adam Troutman is terribly relevant for fantasy. He averages 1 target a game on the season, but my problem with it is only one of those targets total was in the red zone. If he had a few more red zone opportunities, I might be more into it. And again, another week that I'm talking down on like the cheap punt that's getting a little bit of ownership, but I think we have better options that we don't have to go this deep today. Like I said, if he got red zone opportunities, I could see it, but without those red zone opportunities, he just doesn't really have the opportunity to put up any kind of score that we're really going to want. And I don't see this game being so condensed at the top that we just need that value guy to make our lineups work tonight. But Engram, his ownership it looks too high if you're just looking at the slate. But if you actually start to build lineups, I kind of understand why, because this 4,600 price is really nice. But I don't think the rest of the field is considering guys like Chris Rodriguez, Jaleel McLaughlin, Pat Bryant, the rookie over on Denver. I mean, Zach Ertz is kind of expensive, but he's still pulling the ownership. I think he's a fine option too. Marvin Mims is another low-owned option. I hate to say Treylon Burks' name, but if Chris Moore ends up missing, Treylon Burks is $1,000 on both sites, so that could be a consideration. As for Evan Engram, though, I mean, this is a low total game. We don't need a monster ceiling from him to be a good play. This 4,600 price is likely still a misprice, even though he's been underperforming. 5, 3, 4, 8, 6 targets. That's fine for me. And his red zone opportunity wasn't terribly high. I think he had, 6 on the season? Yeah, he has 6 red zone targets on the season. He's got 1 in each of their last 2 games. So that's really the big issue, is he's not scoring touchdowns. He has 1 on the season. Ends up scoring a touchdown tonight. Chalk Field is going to feel pretty good about it. All right, let's I want to jump back to these Denver receivers for just a second. So I already mentioned Troy Franklin is probably our top choice overall on the slate. Courtland Sutton also looks awesome. The other options, Marvin Mims, the model thinks he's okay. He's only projected for 10% ownership. We have to be okay living with playing him when he puts up 0.2 or 1.8, because when he gives us this 15.8, this 20.5, even this 10.4 could be useful. We're getting him at like basically no ownership. And I think for that reason alone, we have to consider him. I'm always down to play these boom or bust guys, because if you never play them when they don't project as good plays, you're never going to catch them on a night that they randomly catch 50-yard touchdown or whatever it's going to be. So 31-yard, didn't even have a touchdown here. Yeah, like this is pretty good. So I don't mind mixing in Marvin Mims, and I also want to mention Pat Bryant, the rookie. Something about post-bye week for these rookies, they tend to see a bump in production. Pat Bryant's coming off a pretty strong game, strongest game in the NFL so far. He's projected for 21% ownership in the flex on DraftKings. He's a little more expensive on FanDuel, but he's only 12% owned over there. The model really likes him. He's sandwiched in between Bo Nix and Jaleel McLaughlin considering price. So Pat Bryant, this is another lowish owned option that we can pivot to. And if you like that post-bye week rookie bump, then we can take advantage of it at our first opportunity to do so. Going to the Washington receivers, Terry McLaurin's back. They said that he's not going to have his full reps tonight, but not full reps for Terry McLaurin could still be 60% of snaps. I think his ownership is a little bit too high if we're projecting him. I don't know what the model projected him for, but the model really likes Terry McLaurin tonight. And so I think if we're playing him, we have to hope he catches a touchdown or is just targeted on most of the snaps that he ends up playing. We're looking at 30% ownership on DraftKings, 24 on FanDuel, but he's only projected for 3% captain and 2% FanDuel MVP. I don't mind getting there at a captain or MVP on either site. That seems fine. Debo, third overall play in the model, top-ranked Washington play. Looks great over on FanDuel too. He's only behind Marcus Mariota and Bo Nix. So Debo, the big thing is that rushing upside. He had a rushing touchdown last week, right? Yeah. These targets are beautiful. The rushing work, he's not getting that many carries, but they're high-value carries. So I think we have to be interested in Debo. He's only projected for 2% captain, 17% flex on DraftKings, and then 1% MVP and 16% on FanDuel in the flex. That seems a little too low. I think this is a player we want to mix in a little bit more. And we already kind of went over a few of the value plays that maybe the field isn't getting to as much that are going to allow us to fit him in easier. As for the secondary receivers in Washington, we have to go look at how the snaps were the rest of the season when Terry McLaurin was in. To open the season, Terry McLaurin was playing most snaps, and so it's going to be hard to glean anything from that because he's not going to play full snaps tonight. But he got hurt in these games, but in week 3, he played 60% of snap, and week 8, he played 47% of snaps. In those games, like Chris Moore seemed like a slight beneficiary, but I'm actually going to just talk about this as if he's going to miss tonight. So Jalen Lane saw a bump while McLaurin was out, but then he lost some of those snaps to Robbie Chosen 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, and then in their previous game in Week 11, he lost even more of those snaps to Robbie Chosen. If Chris Moore is out, I'm not terribly interested in these secondary guys. It might just give me a little bit more interest in Debo and Terry McLaurin. But just going by the model, these guys are all just very low ranked. I mean, Jalen Lane, he looks okay, and I imagine this will come up a little bit if Chris Moore is ruled out. And then Traylon Burks actually has a real model ranking now. I feel like this came up from earlier because Traylon Burks actually looks awesome in the model, even with Chris Moore projected in right now. He's 1K, so it's going to show up like that. Remember, when you see these very low owned, super punty type plays high in the model, we usually reserve those plays only for large field, high risk. So I wouldn't be playing Traylon Burks in any kind of a small field or anything. That's just reserved for the largest contests, even if Chris Moore ends up missing. Jalen Lane could be a little bit interesting too. He's projecting for 0% ownership right now. Traylon's projecting for 5% flex ownership on both sites. I kind of get it because he's 1K, but I'm not going to exclude him from my player pool. I'll let lineups be built with him. I just don't know how necessary he's going to be because I'm already getting to more Pat Bryant. I'm getting to more McLaughlin. I'm getting to more Rodriguez in the field, and that's already quite a lot of value plays to mix in there. Especially, I'm not going very hard on Bo Nix captain. I'm really interested in playing Troy Franklin captain. I'm okay mixing in Debo because he's only 2% projected ownership. And then Marcus Mariota at 10% captain ownership and 17% MVP ownership seems pretty okay to me. So those are going to be my preferences. But if we want to play a Bo Nix captain, we'll build one first over on DraftKings. Bo Nix, we'll go with our top choice, Troy Franklin. I want to see how this looks with just my top options. Chris Rodriguez, Jaleel McLaughlin. We're going to fade RJ Harvey in this one. And then Denver DST is a very strong play. That leaves us 8,500. We can still play RJ Harvey. We can leave a little bit and play McLaurin, which is probably the preference since we're playing Bo Nix at captain. Not only is he high owned, but I don't know. Has Bo Nix ever rushed in a touchdown in the last few weeks? Yeah, it's been a while since he has, but we're just gonna hope he gets that rushing touchdown over Harvey if there's an opportunity for one. You could go down to Zach Ertz and leave 1,500. This would be fine in like larger fields. Let's say you're not really into Jaleel McLaughlin and you just want to play Harvey. Okay. We can still take shots on guys like Marvin Mims, McNichols, Lane. Don't really love that double defense build, but it is a consideration. Pat Bryant, this one's probably pretty good, leaving 1,300 with Bo Nix captain. Getting to a slightly lower owned Chris Rodriguez. Pat Bryant isn't terribly low owned, but you are leaving some salary, so this could be okay. Let's get rid of Chris Rodriguez and just not play Washington running back. Let's see how to fit in Mariota. We are going to have to fade Harvey for sure in this one. Leave Pat Bryant and Broncos gives us 5,900. Will Lutz is a pretty strong play. We're still leaving 900, which is good for large fields, having Nick's captain. Take Pat Bryant out, could upgrade him to any of these guys. These are all fine. I really like the Broncos defense, and Will Lutz is a strong play, but let's try to run this. Yeah, there's no one down here we're really looking at too hard. Let's just take a look at McLaughlin without Chris Rodriguez in there. Yeah, we can get up to Evan Engram. This would be a fine last play in. We're only leaving 100 now, but we do have McLaughlin as our lower owned guy to help us get a little bit different. Let's take a look at Sutton in the flex instead of Troy Franklin. It's a little more restricting. That $1,000 is actually really useful today. But you can still take a punt on Jalen Lane. It's not my favorite. There's not really anyone cheaper than McLaughlin that I want to go to, but we can run this one with Evan Engram. I mean, Pat Bryant, this would be okay. 3 pass catchers, Bo Nix captain with Denver defense. Seems fine. Debo captain, Mariota, Franklin, JCM, McLaughlin, Mims. Yeah, let's take a look. This is like super contrarian. If you're entering this one in the big lottery, then that's probably this is a good shot to try to get a solo takedown. Mariota, Franklin, JCM. Like if you can hit on both the Debo captain and the Ja'Cory Kroski Merit flex, it's just not going to be a common build tonight. McLaughlin and Mims. Like, okay, so my first thoughts are this is just slightly too contrarian. I think you could do a little bit better and just get up to like if you're into Jake Moody, I think Jake Moody would be a better option than Marvin Mims. Maybe Evan Engram would be a good option too. Not to say that Mims is not a good option, but you already have all of your leverage that you need. You have the 2% owned captain and you have the 3% owned flex play. I say just fill in the last spot with whoever projects the highest for you that you can afford. PFF has Mariota ranked higher than Bo Nix. You think that's interesting? I'm pretty sure our model has Mariota ranked higher than Bo Nix today too. And that's another thing with this Bo Nix captain ownership, 27% on DraftKings, 44% on FanDuel MVP. Yeah, the Broncos are the favorites, but they're only 5.5 points. It's tough for Mariota to have to go against this Denver defense, especially with Pat Surtain back. That's just a little harder for him to get there through the air. But I mean, with Mariota, we're really counting on him to score a rushing touchdown anyway, right? He also hasn't had a rushing touchdown in a while, but I don't see why it can't come tonight. Like just looking at these scores, if you plug him in for like 17 fantasy points tonight, he's going to show up in a ton of your lineups. And I don't think he's projected for much lower than that, if he even is. I mean, our model loves Mariota tonight. It likes him more than Bo Nix. Even considering the price difference, Mariota would still win out if their price was the same, it looks like. So I think it's a really great pivot. Yeah, let's take a look at if we want to run that Mariota captain. Mariota, let's run our top pass catching option in Debo Samuel. We're going to fade Bo Nix real quick on this one. Run it back with Troy Franklin, our underperforming wide receiver. We can get a Chris Rodriguez in there. We could consider fading him too and just hope that Mariota gets that goal line touch or whatever it's going to be. We can go to the Washington kicker, Jake Moody, leaves us 4,700 to fill out the lineup with. Like we have options, so I think this is a pretty good start to a build. Evan Engram would be fine. McLaughlin would be fine. McNichols would be a kind of a deep one, but if you're playing the largest fields, it's fine. Marvin Mims, great. No one's really playing Commanders defense today. Denver defense right now is projected for 5% captain ownership, 4% MVP ownership, 30% and 40% in the flex for Broncos D versus Washington defense projected for 0% captain MVP and 10 and 6% in the flex. Now, obviously, the Denver defense is way, way better of a play tonight than the Commanders, but on a showdown, especially in a low total game, Bo Nix hasn't been fantastic. Commanders defense is definitely capable of scoring a defensive touchdown tonight, and if they do, that could be enough. They've been awful, but this is one of the top plays that actually is going to come in under 10% owned, and so I think we just always have to consider it. And if you've been paying attention the last few weeks, defenses have been dominating showdowns. Tonight it is likely to be the Denver defense, but if it's the Commanders defense and you're doing at least one other funky thing in your lineup, like you're going to have a pretty good shot at not being duped at least. Let's jump to one over on FanDuel. This is the one I was kind of building out before stream with a Bo Nix captain. We're leaving 1,900, which is kind of a lot of salary, but Jaleel McLaughlin is also much cheaper over on FanDuel at only 2,600. He's projected for higher ownership, but we have Chris Rodriguez in here. Denver defense is going to be very popular too, but I think leaving 1,900 is enough for this lineup, even though the ownership is kind of high. But let's say we're fading Bo Nix MVP over on FanDuel. This is one of those weeks where you could go all in on Bo Nix or you could fade Bo Nix. And I mean, my inclination is to just fade Bo Nix in large fields anyway over on FanDuel. But we'll take a look with Marcus Mariota. We'll run it with Debo again. Can we run it with RJ Harvey? Let's try an RJ Harvey build over on FanDuel. He's a little bit stronger over there. Leaves us 6,200 per player. wonder if we could still fit in Troy Franklin and find some. I don't think so, actually. Oh, Jaleel McLaughlin. Yeah, Jaleel McLaughlin might be a little bit too popular over on FanDuel. Like, I love him. Chris and I, if you've been watching our best ball streams the last few summers, like, we are big fans of Jaleel McLaughlin. He hasn't quite done what we've been hoping. And it's just this 2,600 price might make him so he's just the easy click for anyone hand building, and optimizers are jamming him into. So maybe his ownership comes in a little higher than he deserves, but at 2,600, we can't really ignore him. We could get rid of the Denver defense against our MVP quarterback. Could slide Zach Ertz in there. Leaves us 3,100. Doesn't really change anything. Just gives us Jalen Lane if we'd like. Probably still prefer Jaleel McLaughlin, but with RJ Harvey in the lineup, we could run this 4-2 Washington build. This isn't too bad. Fading Bo Nix. I don't think there's anyone really down from Zach Ertz that we're terribly interested in on Washington. That's not mega cheap. I mean, I don't think Jake Moody gives us anything else. No, but he's an option too. Could get to Pat Bryant or Marvin Mims. Let's see how Marvin Mims looks, but 5,500. Yeah, so it doesn't really, I wouldn't really run anything like this. This is a little awkward without Bo Nix. Yeah, dude, this like happens every year. They jump in the big aquarium, right? And it's actually such a disaster for the stores because they have to drain the whole thing, and it's really traumatic for the fish, and it's very expensive to clean. Don't do that. I mean, it's funny to watch, but it's terrible to think about the consequences of it. 20 to 17 Commanders. You think Washington because of the home field advantage? Hey, I don't hate it. Bo Nix has been awful. Like someone pointed out, Marcus Mariota has been awesome. But Denver defense, they get back their best player tonight in Pat Surtain, and they were already looking pretty great. So it's a tough situation for him. Terry McLaurin coming back could help a little bit. Let's see if maybe going down to Terry McLaurin instead of Debo opens up a little bit more, saving like $3,000. Yeah, we can get up to Denver defense against our quarterback, which is a fine contrarian build. We could take the shot on JCM. It's not too bad. He's going to come in 3% ownership, though, so prefer to save that for just the largest contests. You can get Jake Moody in there, leaving 1,900. It's a little bit of a... Let's see if we can upgrade Marvin Mims, actually. Yeah, just a Pat Bryant, so not too much of an upgrade. Maybe we'll take RJ Harvey out, run it with... We already have Troy Franklin. I don't know, see if we can run a 2 quarterback build. Yeah, still get Marvin Mims. This is fine. 3-3 with a Washington Marcus Mariota captain. You don't know if you'll play tonight, but you're a big fan of the dog defense. I'm going to assume you mean underdog and Washington. Let's run it with let's try running a not quarterback lineup on FanDuel. See, like the ideal build for Troy Franklin. I think, no, I had a Bo Nix lineup to start. So we will play Bo Nix in this one. Don't mind running it back with Mariota. McLaughlin's just too easy. I know I like most of these weeks that I'm on here, I tend to gravitate towards 1 or 2 value plays, and it's just because they really help lineups work. Don't take that to mean like I have Jaleel McLaughlin in like every single lineup that I'm making. I'm playing a ton of him, but I mean, and he is the default for if you need a super cheap value play, but don't play 100% Jaleel McLaughlin tonight. And we can still fit in Debo in the flex with both quarterbacks. This is pretty good. Power of Jaleel McLaughlin's 2,600. It's a huge difference. Take out Will Lutz. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty great lineup for small fields. I think it's easier to go with a lower owned captain than it is to play the lower owned flex plays, but we do have the lower owned flex plays if we want to go that way. Let's build an RJ Harvey lineup. The model's a little lower on him. I do think we're interested in getting away a little bit. It's harder over on FanDuel, but he's still an option, obviously. I mean, a third of the field is probably going to play him tonight, so he's got to be pretty good. Bo Nix, been awful. We'll play him. Want to fade Debo here? Let's try McLaurin, see if that salary helps a little bit. RJ Harvey, Let's go with Cortland Sutton instead of Troy Franklin. That 2,000 is very restricting. It's just going to end up with us getting to Jaleel McLaughlin again. Evan Engram. Yeah, I mean, Jaleel McLaughlin at 2,600 feels like a much stronger play than these guys. But remember, I did mention that post-rookie bye week bump for Pat Bryant. So he could end up being one of the keys to tonight's slate, especially if he ends up catching a touchdown or for some reason just gets peppered tonight and Troy Franklin and Cortland Sutton drop their passes. That's an interesting angle to take. I wouldn't run this lineup though, like 3 pass catchers with Harvey and then Bo Nix in the flex. We'd probably prefer to get Bo Nix at MVP here, but let me see if that fits. Yeah, it does fit. So this is fine. I know I was trying to do a RJ Harvey lineup, but turned into a Bo Nix lineup. If you're running RJ Harvey at MVP, we're probably a little more interested in playing the Denver defense. Like, I know in my lineups tonight, I'm not going to have that many lineups with RJ Harvey MVP, so I'm pretty sure Denver DST is just going to end up in most of them by default. But let's do this playing for an under. So we'll run the DST, we'll run the kicker. We already have Harvey. Like, it's kind of an interesting build to put McLaughlin, but I'm really going to try not to. Like, Evan Engram. It's just too cheap over here. This is such a misprice for him to be cheaper than all these guys. It's incorrect. I mean, we have all the salary to play whoever we want. We can just put Bo Nix, and we can still play this 2 QB lineup with even playing for the under. We're leaving 900 even though we have the most popular MVP. We didn't get Jaleel McLaughlin in this one, so that's a good one. If you have this option, I think we still want to default to Marcus Mariota, but it is okay if you want to play Debo. On FanDuel, the only player ranked ahead of Debo is Marcus Mariota. And Marcus Mariota is actually the highest ranked player over on FanDuel. He edges out Bo Nix by 0.1 in OF Index. That's due to the price discount, but keep it in mind. Marcus Mariota, he's going to be very owned in the flex, but I think we can get a little bit of leverage playing him more at MVP and then especially at captain over on DraftKings. Small field Debo build, or was your build good for that? I think your build was a little too contrarian for smaller fields, but if you make that pivot, because you had $1,000 left, I believe, with Mims at the bottom, if you change Mims to one of the kickers, I think it looks a little bit better for smaller fields. Because with Debo and JCM, like if that's the way you think the game is going, I think that's all you have to do. Just play the higher ranked play in your last positions. Mariota, Franklin, McLaughlin all sound great too. And if you're not playing Bo Nix, like you're getting leverage on what, 80% of the field tonight on DraftKings, 27% captain, 54% flex. I mean, with the lower total, it is less likely that Bo Nix is pushed out of the winner as the favorite here, but there are still situations. I mean, is Bo Nix in the optimal lineup 80% of the time here? Honestly, probably, yeah. But if he ends up not being and you don't have Bo Nix in that lineup, you're really only competing with 20% of the field. But on the other side, we also have the value plays, especially on FanDuel, Evan Engram and McLaughlin to just play Bo Nix at MVP very, very easily. Let's see if there's anything else. I threw out this kind of idea in the plug. Just wanted to, I don't know, see if we can get something going here. Chris Rodriguez, captain. Again, I mentioned it's not a guarantee that he's going to take over the work like he did last week, and it really wasn't even that much work that he got. How many carries? Oh, 15 carries. Never mind. I was thinking about the snaps played. So the thing is, he's touching the football most of the time that he's on the field. This is a good game. Like his longest rush was only 17. He averaged over 5. Tight game, low total. This would be an interesting captain option, and it allows us to do anything we want in the flex. Bo Nix, Mariota, Debo, Jaleel McLaughlin, Jake Moody. Or if you want to get super weird, Commanders defense, get rid of Jaleel, and then could still play Jake Moody. Or this would probably be a little bit too contrarian, going against your captain and having the, oh, no, 2 defenses. We're not running 2 defenses. Yeah, just play one of the kickers in the last spot here. But it's an idea too for Chris Rodriguez, but he would actually have to have probably a good game because it's not hard to fit anyone a captain. We likely just want the actual highest point score on this slate in our captain spot. Yeah, I don't think we have to really show any lineups with a cheaper captain than that because you kind of just saw how it all fits together. You can play whoever you want. And if you're playing one of those cheaper 0 to 1% captains, I don't think you really have to worry much about ownership. Maybe just don't play the most obvious lineup that uses all the salary. I think that's about going to round it out this week, guys. If anyone has any last minute questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat. I'll stay for about 2 more minutes. I do want to mention we came out with a new version of the lineup builder. It's completely revamped. That is not part of the package that I usually advertise on here. It's a separate package. So go check that out on the site, though. It's pretty good. I think Brian and Jack have showed it off a little bit on the stream. So keep in mind, we've had a few members sign up and they seem to like it. So go and follow them. If you want to come and join the Discord, instructions to do that are in the description below. We talk about, pre-slate stuff. If we get some weird news when the active report comes out in a few minutes, then we'll discuss that there. I mean, the only thing we're really expecting is Chris Moore being out. If he ends up playing, then, he's probably a fine play and no one's going to want to play him because he was sick. But those guys are all just kind of pivots anyway, all the secondary receivers, the secondary running backs. I think it's a good night if you want to up your risk slightly. It's like terrible football game, but the model's giving us a lot of guys that are under 20% projected ownership in the flex, like Deebo Samuel, Cortland Sutton, Chris Rodriguez. Jaleel McLaughlin is projected for 9%. I'm pretty sure he comes in higher than that, but if he's under 20, that still seems pretty good. Washington defense at 10%. Even Jake Moody is only 23% Washington's kicker versus Will Lutz, Denver's kicker, at 31%. So a lot of ways to get different. If you really don't want to fade that Bo Nix MVP or RJ Harvey MVP captain, it's fine. You can play him. We have the low owned plays to fit him in. Just leave a little bit of salary. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And good luck tonight. We'll see you back tomorrow.